A very good evening, all of you. Can anyone indicate if you can hear me and if you can see my screen? Any one of you, either type in your chat box or just unmute yourself and let me know if you can hear me.
Morning, ma'am.
Yes.
I'm hearing.
Hello, Seema. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
great. And is my screen visible?
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
yeah, it's visible.
Okay. Okay, great. So, more students are joining now. Let's wait for some time. See uh, that others join. Let's wait for 5 more minutes and then we'll start the session. Okay, I think we can start the session. Uh, Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's session. Today is the second session for this subject, which is strategies for sustainable design. So today we'll discuss whatever material has been covered in the second week, and we'll solve some problems associated with that material. So this will essentially be like problem solving session or a set of example questions which I'll solve for you, or which I'll show you how to approach the material that you're studying, and how using that material you can go about solving the questions that are assigned to you for your assignments, or maybe even for the questions that you might get in your exams. So I'll give you a background of the material that you need to know to solve the questions and how to go about solving the questions. I'll also provide you with some further links or resources that you can use as resource material to further, if you want to read about the material that you are covering, you want further information about anything, you can refer to those sources, or if you want further clarity about any of the material that we are covering, you can again refer to these sources. Apart from all this which we are covering as a set of example questions, you can ask other questions related to the material that you have covered so far. So if you have any doubts related to that material, that also you can ask. Only thing I would ask you to refrain from asking is the questions that are currently assigned to you in your assignments, in your weekly assignments, because that is a part of your scoring. Like, you will be scored or graded on based on those assignments. Please do not ask me the answers to those assignments that you are supposed to solve on your own. Apart from that, if you have any doubts in the background material or anything that we are covering, you are welcome to ask any questions related to that. So what we do here is we take a set of example questions from the previous runs of this question. So this subject, it runs every year as an NPTEL course, and this year whatever you assignments you've been assigned, we are not solving those questions. We are solving questions which were assigned in previous runs in the previous years, and we'll solve them as an example so that you get an idea how to solve the questions. So this is basically what we do here, how we go about this problem solving session. I hope there are no doubts about that. Are you all joining today for the first time, or you attended the previous sessions as well? If there are people who are joining for the first time, you can just either raise your hands or give any reaction that you're joining for the first time. Okay, there are few people, I think, who are joining for the first time. Okay. So, do all of you know how to access the previous sessions or the material that has been covered in the previous session? Okay, Prem Prakash is saying that yes, he knows. Does anyone have any doubts? Does anyone want to know how to access the previous session or the material that has been shared in the previous session? Or can anyone, like everyone can access it?
Could not download that previous session video.
Uh, I didn't hear you. Can you speak again, Sima?
Hello. Could not download, which I am on the way. That's the problem.
Sima, I'm unable to hear you. Could you just type in a message?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
We got a link mail, na? So we can download from that.
Yes, yes. So you would have gotten a link to the previous session's videos and another link where we have a shared drive folder, and you can get the material from that shared drive folder. So everyone got that link? Okay. So okay. So I'll assume that everyone has access to that link. Everyone has gotten it. If you haven't gotten that link, you can just type in the chat box and I'll show you how to access it. Okay. Okay, so I'll just show you. So this is the Swayam portal. So you, as soon as you sign in, okay, so you go to my courses, and from there to the course, strategies for sustainable design. So go to your course, and in the course page only, at the end you will get this problem solving session January 2024. So you just go on to here, and you'll see there is a solving session recording. So you click this link here, and then there is a link attached to this page. So you just click on to here, and this will take you to this shared Excel sheet. So in this Excel sheet there will be links to each week's videos. So all of the sessions which we have, they are recorded and they are uploaded as a YouTube video link. So you'll get the links to each week. So if you go on to this link, you can go to the video of each week. And apart from that, there is a shared folder also. So in this folder I share all of the material which I present in the live session, and any additional material which I have given as a reference material, everything I share in this drive folder. So if you go to this drive folder, you'll see something like this. So this is our shared folder. This is last week's sessions PDF. So I provide our materials in PDF formats usually. So this is the PDF from the last week, and this is an additional reference material which I gave in last week's session. So I hope it is clear now how you can access both these files and the recorded sessions. Are there any doubts, or it's clear to everyone? Okay, no doubts. Okay, let's proceed then. Okay. So, welcome to this week's session, and I'll start the session now. So, this is the second week. So, these are the lectures that would have been covered so far. So, you might remember that previous week we discussed that sustainability has three key components, which is the environmental sustainability, social sustainability, and economic sustainability. Whenever we talk of sustainability, it is not just one thing. A lot of the time people confuse sustainability to just environmental sustainability, so just thinking about how to protect the environment, how to conserve the resources. That is not it. Sustainability has three key dimensions, which is the environmental, social, and economic sustainability. So last week we just did an introductory session on what uh, that means. This week you would have gone into detail about what environmental sustainability is, what social sustainability is, and what economic sustainability is. And the first three lectures were about that. After that, you would have one lecture on climate change mitigation and the way forward. So, a key subject while studying sustainability is how the climate is changing and what steps we can take to mitigate the harm or the adverse impact that we've already produced on our existing environment, which has caused our climate to change. So, what are the steps we can take, what we can do in order to mitigate the impacts that are already taken or would be taken in the future by humankind as we perform our anthropogenic activities. So we release a lot of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases in the environment, and because of that, the temperature is rising, and a lot of other hydroecological processes are taking place, and a lot of atmospheric processes are taking place because of that, and because of that the climate is changing. So one key subject or aspect related to sustainability is always how to mitigate the impacts of climate change that human activity or anthropogenic activity has caused, and what is the way forward. So this is the lecture introducing a little bit about that. And then last lecture would be future of human habitation design. In this you would have studied several examples of buildings as case studies, buildings or other habitation projects that would have been presented as case studies for how future buildings or future habitations should be designed in a way or in an order that they can contribute to our sustainable development goals. So either they contribute to environmental sustainability, or maybe energy efficiency, or maybe carbon sequestration, or reducing the embodied carbon that the building activity or construction activity produces. So all different kinds of examples relating to that. Some examples even relating to social sustainability or other things would have been discussed in this lecture. So essentially, examples of some human habitation design as case study would have been introduced to you in this lecture. So this is what has been covered so far in this week, and we will solve questions related to this. So coming to our first question is Chernobyl in Russia is famous for which type of disaster? And you have four options: flood, biowarfare, earthquake, and nuclear disaster. So as you might know that nuclear energy is important, not essentially renewable source of energy, but it's a more sustainable resource of energy production, as the amount of resources used in the production of nuclear energy and the amount of waste generated as as a part of the nuclear reaction is comparatively very less to the amount of waste that is generated from other non-renewable resources like fossil fuels, etc. And the amount of energy produced is also very high compared to the amount of energy that is produced by using other non-renewable resources like fossil fuels. So considering that nuclear energy was once thought to be a very innovative solution to producing sustainable form of energy which can sustain the present and future generations, but uh, there were several several nuclear disaster events which occurred, and which proved to us that although nuclear energy is a promising avenue for producing sustainable energy, but it is associated with uh, severe disasters, or disasters on a scale that we would not have comprehended earlier, and a safe and secure practice of harvesting or producing nuclear energy is essential. Otherwise, uh, even few nuclear disasters would render uh, uh, the amount of impact we are trying to reduce because of producing sustainable energy. If disasters occur, they'll kind of even if a few disasters occur, they'll kind of negate the amount of impact we are trying to reduce on our environment. So a huge example for this kind of disaster is Chernobyl. So it was a disaster accident which occurred in 1986 at the Chernobyl nuclear power station, which was then in the Soviet Union, and it is present day located in Pripyat. or it was situated at the settlement of Pripyat, which is located 65 miles north of present-day Kyiv in Ukraine. And it was a huge disaster, and because of this disaster, a large part of the area near Pripyat, where Chernobyl was located, had to be declared as an exclusion zone, where all of the natural resources and the environment was destroyed. So even though nuclear energy production was considered an innovative way of producing sustainable energy, a disaster like this was a wake up call for considering that although it is an innovative and sustainable way of energy production, but if we do not have enough uh, if we do not have enough security measures in place, even uh, disaster like this can render a lot of the natural resources associated with that area. It can render them useful, or it can destroy them. So uh, that is why there is a lot of pushback or reduction in nuclear energy production these days. So this is an important example for you to understand that why nuclear energy as a source of energy or source of sustainable energy is not very popular these days. So this question is related to that, and I think the answer to this is clear. We move on to the next question now. So the next question is, which country has the highest cumulative carbon dioxide emission from fossil fuels and cement from the year 1751 to 2017? And you have four options: China, Russia, European Union, and United States of America. So this question is actually related to this graph here. So this graph actually shows the cumulative CO2 emissions from the year 1751 to 2017, and the CO2 emissions from both fossil fuels and cement. So as you can see here, the largest CO2 emissions have been done by the United States of America, followed by the European Union, China, and Russia, and then so. And you can see here, this is the amount of emissions that have been produced by the country, and this graph right here in this direction, it shows the amount of carbon capture or CO2 capture that will be needed uh, to be done in order to keep the rise of our atmospheric temperature under 2 degrees Celsius. So there are uh, several data related to or projections related to how the temperature of our atmosphere or the atmospheric temperature will rise over time because of the climate change or because of the global warming. So according to current projections, if we do not curb our CO2 emissions, or if we do not introduce measures for carbon capture or CO2 capture, uh, our temperature can rise up to the average temperature rise can be up to 2 degrees Celsius, and the goal of all the climate change adaptation and mitigation initiatives is to ensure that the rise is kept under 2 degrees Celsius, so that a lot of impacts of climate change can either be reduced or can be avoided. So this question is basically asking you about the total cumulative emissions or CO2 emissions that have been done by several countries. And you can see from this graph that this graph is very skewed. Uh, a lot of the developed countries, they produced way more carbon or carbon dioxide as compared to a lot of uh, less developed or developing countries like India, China, etc. So you can see from this that the more developed countries are usually the larger contributors to the carbon dioxide emissions. So I think you can very easily answer to this question, that which country has the highest cumulative carbon dioxide emission from fossil fuels and cement. I have provided you more resources. So this is time series data for GHG emissions from the UNFCCC country-wise GHG emission inventory, and then more GHG data from the UNFCCC. You can go and see this data in your own time if you want to take a look at this, because this is a very specific data for the period from 1751 to 2017. But if you want to get details about time series data or emission data of a different time period or for different purposes, you can access these resources for your own use. So for example, this is the time series data for the GHG emissions. So you can see for each country, uh, you get the data about the base year, then for every year what is the total GHG emission done by the country. So in for Australia, emissions in 1990, then in 95, 2000, and so on. So last inventory year was in 2021, so the data here is till 2021. So you can get data about these countries till 2021. You can even see the change in amount of GHG production by each country from the base year. So I don't know the base year, but I think it is 1990 because the data in this column and this column matches. So the base year, I think it is 1990. So you can see the change, uh, the percentage change from the base year to the current year, how much change has been. So you can see that for a lot of countries the change has been negative, which means that they have to some extent reduce their CO2 emissions from the year 1990. So in this you can see a lot of countries have reduced their emissions a lot. For example, this is Belarus. So Belarus has reduced almost one third or more than one third of their total emissions, while some countries like Austria have reduced uh, very little. Do not go into this because this figure here is 0. That is why this shows that it is minus 100%, but this is not true. You have data till 2020, so maybe till 2020 you can calculate how much Australia's emissions have reduced, but for other countries you can find similarly. Then you can even get uh, other details about GHG emissions and other things. You can even get details pertaining to the particular gas, for example CO2 or methane or N2O, etc. So you can get by that, and you can even get data by sector. So as we saw, we were looking at data from fossil fuels and cement. So here you can get data about energy industries, maybe manufacturing industries and construction, transport, other sectors, uh, from agriculture, uh, from land use or land use change and forestry, GHG produced from waste, etc. So you can get data related to that. So this is an important resource which I think it's good for you to have. So if you want to go into further research, or you want to learn more about GHG emissions, so this is an inventory which you can refer to. There is more data from UNFCCC about GHG emissions. So if you want to further read, you have data even in map forms. So you can see here. Okay. So as you can see here, the data is even represented in maps. So from here, you can change how you want to see, or from which source you want to see the emission. If you want to see the aggregate GHG production, or you only want to see CO2 emission or methane emission, etc. You can change that also. Then you can see that data projected over this map. So again, this is another thing which you can do. There are several other inventories of data about GHG emissions which you can access. So all of that is available here. So what you need to do, you just need to visit these two links and then you can access these inventories. So I hope that is clear. So that is some additional data which you might want to see or you might need to study about carbon emissions or GHG emissions. So I hope this is clear. Uh, Moving on to the next question. So the next question is stored energy decreases by a factor of what up the food chain. So this is basically talking about the trophic levels or about the food chain and how the energy once it transfers from one trophic level to another trophic level, how it changes. Another example of a question which can be related to this or which you might get is what percentage of energy loss is there in each step up the food chain. So this question is talking about the factor. So what factor of energy is passed up to the food chain, and you can again get a similar question related to this, like what percentage of energy is lost. So one is asking what percentage is transferred, so what remains, and then you can get another question which is maybe asking that what percentage or what factor of energy is lost. So this is, I'm just showing this to show you that the question can be asked in different forms, but again it is based on the same material. It is basically talking about energy flow and ecosystem. So as you know that all living things need energy to grow, breathe, reproduce and move. And as you might know that energy cannot be created from nothing. So it must be transferred through the ecosystem. So we get energy from somewhere and then it transfers from one trophic level to another. So from uh, one organism to another. So as one organism consumes another organism, so the part of its food chain, the energy gets transferred from one organism to another. But can anyone tell me where does this energy come from? What is the primary source of energy? So can anyone tell me the primary source of energy for almost every ecosystem on earth is what? Tanmay is saying solar energy. Anyone else? Anyone else has any answer?
Fuel energy.
Fuel energy. What do you mean by fuel energy? I'm actually asking the source. And the source from which
Wind energy.
okay, so try to understand here. I'm basically asking that the organisms on Earth, we get energy from something. So, as humans, we eat food, we get energy from food. So, our food consists of plants and sometimes animal sources. So, we get energy from eating plants or animals, but the plants or animals also get energy from somewhere. So, energy cannot be created. As you know, it cannot be created from nothing. So even the plants and animals, they also get their energy from somewhere. So I'm basically asking that where did this originate from? What is the primary source from which all of the organisms get their energy? Anyone else likes to answer? Okay, so essentially Tanmay is right. So solar energy is the energy which is the primary source, but the primary energy which we use. But essentially the source of this energy is sun. So the primary source of all energy for almost every ecosystem on the earth is sun. So because it starts from the lowest level, which are the producers, so they get energy from the sun. They produce their own food in the form of glucose from the sun, and then the energy from the sun is stored in the plants in the form of biomass, which gets transferred to the different tropic levels when uh, uh, the organisms in each tropic level is consumed by the organisms in another tropic level. So solar energy is consumed by the plants or is absorbed by the plants, who are the primary producers. And when animals from the first tropic level, or plants are the first tropic level, so animals from the second tropic level, when they consume the plants, energy from the plants are transferred to them. Then from the second tropic level, when they consume animals from the first tropic level, then energy is further transferred on to them, and so on. So basically, plants are primary producers. They use energy from the sun to produce their own food in the form of glucose. Then primary producers are eaten by primary consumers, which are either herbivores or omnivores, who are then further eaten by secondary consumers, who are either omnivores or carnivores, and then so on. And energy from the sun, essentially, it flows from the plants to different tropic levels. So easiest way to demonstrate this energy flow is through a food chain like this, or if you get into the details of uh, how organisms consume each other, who is a food for which organisms, there it is possible that the same organisms is being consumed by multiple other organism, or multiple organisms are being consumed by a same organism. So in that way, uh, then instead of a simple food chain, it becomes a food web. But this is how you can understand that how the energy is transferred to the each trophic level. So essentially, how the energy is stored, it is stored in the form of biomass. So all the biomass generated by a, primary producer is called gross primary productivity. But why does all of the biomass doesn't get transferred to the next level? It is because a lot of the biomass is used either in respiration, or is excreted as waste. So the net primary productivity, which is what it means is the leftover biomass or energy which the primary producer has after it has used a certain part of the biomass produced for respiration. So uh, from this we can understand that not all energy generated by one trophic level is consumed in that trophic level. It will be available to the organisms in the next higher trophic level. But at each level, some of the biomass that is consumed by that trophic level is excreted either in the form of waste, or it is converted to heat during the process of respiration. So because of this, it won't be available for the next trophic level. So this is what is also known as the 10% rule, because only 10% of energy stored as biomass in one trophic level is passed on to the next trophic level. So this is what the question is asking about, and I hope the answer to it is clear. So this is what the question is asking, that what percentage of stored energy is decreased, like what factor percentage is decreased when we move up the food chain. So I hope this is clear. We move on to the next question. So the next question is, sustainable use of resources falls under which category of sustainability? So as we saw earlier also, whenever we talk about resources or essentially natural resources, we talk about of environmental sustainability. So this question is talking about environmental sustainability. This is an example of another kind of questions related to environmental sustainability that you might get. So this question is asking about what are the different aspects which represent environmental sustainability. So this is talking about one particular aspect which is sustainable use of the resources, and this is talking about different aspects of the same thing, which is environmental sustainability. So for this, you need to refer this section of your lectures, which is essentially talks about environmental sustainability. Environmental sustainability basically talks about treating environmental resources as if they have intrinsic rights and value, and we don't need to protect these environmental resources just for their monetary value, but we should protect the resources because they deserve to be protected rather than just uh, for their protection so that they can fulfill our economic requirements. So there are several aspects of environmental sustainability, like making intergenerational decisions, targeting welfare of the community, not just focusing on the GDP or the economic production that environmental resources enable. Also thinking about uh, avoiding pollution when using the resources, and protecting health of various ecosystems, and also trying to use renewable resources or resources which can get renewed in a shorter time period as compared to resources like fossil fuels, which take a very long time to be renewed or restored to their original state. So there are a lot of issues concerning environmental sustainability. For example, long-term health of ecosystems, which means protecting long-term productivity and health of resources to meet the future and economic social needs. So not only for the current generation or current set of human beings, but also protecting food supply, farmland, and fishing stocks for the next generations of humans or other organisms or living beings which will inhabit the earth and will need to use these resources. Uh, then again, intergenerational decision making, which again focuses on making decisions in such a way that whatever resources are using, they'll have the least amount of negative implications for future generations, not just for the present generation, but also will have enough resources left over to be restored or regenerated for use for the next generations. Also, using renewable resources falls along the same line. So trying to use resources which are easily recyclable or restorable so that they are available for use uh, for the next generations. Also trying to prevent the consequences of man-made global warming. So like trying to reduce the GHG emissions so that they don't uh, permanently change our climate or our environment in a way that a lot of the earth's functioning, the functioning of our hydroecological systems or our ecosystems doesn't change permanently for a very long time, that a lot of ecosystems are destroyed or a lot of natural resources which we have that they get destroyed. So trying to prevent all of the negative consequences related to anthropogenic global warming. Then comes protection of species diversity and ecological structure. As we know that species diversity is essential for the survival of the species, and that for the long-term stability of our ecological systems, and extinction of a lot of species also limits future technological innovation. So for that, we need to protect species diversity as well. Then there are other things like targeting social welfare or happiness, that by targeting environmental sustainability above just crude measures of progress like measuring GDP or the economic value that we are getting from use of natural resources. So always any kind of sustainability has some overlaps or intersections with other types. Like for example, in this case, when we are talking about targeting social welfare or happiness, we are talking about the overlap of environmental sustainability with economic and social sustainability as well. So, using resources or using natural resources in a way that we produce social welfare and we just don't measure the economic output generated from the natural resources, but we also see the amount of fulfillment or amount how the economic output is distributed among the people. We need to focus on those things as well. So this is related. This is some aspects of environmental sustainability which coincides with or intersects with the aspects of social and economic sustainability. These are some examples of some policies which can promote environmental sustainability. For example, introduction of a carbon tax. A tax can be placed on consumption of carbon, for example, on consumption of fossil fuels. Uh, this aims to make the user face the full social cost as opposed to just the private cost of consuming that particular fossil fuel or any kind of GHG emitting substance. Another example is government regulation to limit harmful emissions. For example, many cities in the world have planned to ban diesel cars by a certain date. So, in order to reduce the emissions from use of vehicles, there are also examples of subsidies or for encouragement of more sustainable practices. For example, there are a lot of subsidies on e-vehicles or moving towards subsidies for using renewable energy like solar or wind power. You might know about the uh, new scheme or program. I think it is called Suryodaya. It is being introduced now to subsidize and push more focus towards the adoption of solar energy instead of relying on energy produced from consumption of fossil fuels. So that is one kind of example of encouraging more sustainable environmental practices by using non by using renewable resources like solar energy. Then another example can be that you include all environmental consequences when you analyze uh, or when you do analysis for a certain kind of decision making. For example, in environmental impact assessment. So whenever we uh, plan a large project, a lot of the times an environmental impact assessment is done for such kind of projects. In that assessment, we consider all of the environmental impacts that the project will have, and based on that, we decide if the project should be executed at all or not, or what steps can be taken in order to execute the project, which will reduce the impacts that the project will have on the environment. So, this is another kind of example of environmental sustainability policy. Then another example is shifting the consumer behavior uh, through some way that the consumer is encouraged to use sustainable resources or discouraged from using non-sustainable materials or non-sustainable. For example, there are certain taxes for discouraging the use of plastics. So these are some examples. So I hope this is clear. So this was all material related to environmental sustainability, what environmental sustainability is, what are different aspects, what are some examples related to environmental sustainability, so what are some examples of policies which can be introduced which can further environmental sustainability. I hope this is clear. We move on to the next question. So the next question is the capacity to come back to the normal position without much of external intervention after having gone through some catastrophic event or some kind of damage in the environmental sustainability is called what? Then you have four options: resilience, vulnerability, fragility, or fatalism. So these are the four options. So let's start with the concept of risk. That will cover both resilience and vulnerability. So risk is essentially a multiplication of vulnerability with resilience. So risk is risk of anything happening or anything negative happening uh, to either a person or a community or a particular entity. So risk is defined by how vulnerable the entity is and how resilient it is. So vulnerability of the entity is defined by exposure. So how the inherent features of that entity makes it exposed to a certain kind of risk, and then what is its coping ability. So how much it is able to cope with that certain kind of disturbance or certain kind of negative impact, and how easily it can bounce back from that negative impact to its original state. So that is what is resilience. So you can also understand resilience and from this triangle, which is called the risk triangle. So if you consider the area of the triangle to be the risk, so you can consider each side of the triangle to be hazard, vulnerability, and exposure. So the area of the triangle, which is risk, is equal to uh, half of the multiplication of all the sides, which is half of the multiplication of the hazard, the amount of hazard that is present, the amount of vulnerability of the entity itself, and how much uh, how much the object is exposed to the particular risk or hazard. So if any of the sides becomes 0, the area of the triangle becomes 0. So essentially the risk becomes 0. So for example, there is some hazard and the entity is exposed to the hazard also. So for example, there is a house uh, and it is in an area where floods occur frequently. So it is facing a hazard, which is a flood occurrence, and it is located there in the floodplains. So it is facing some exposure also, so it is exposed. uh, but if it's not vulnerable at all, so if it is built with systems or flood protection measures which enables it to protect itself from the impacts of the floods, then it has zero vulnerability. So if the vulnerability becomes zero, then this point and this point comes together, and then the area of the triangle becomes zero. So if any of the side becomes 0, the area of the triangle becomes 0. So essentially, if either vulnerability, exposure, or hazard is reduced or it's lessened, the amount of risk that an object experiences is either reduced or it becomes 0. So this is what is meant by risk, vulnerability, and resilience. You can see this a lot uh, employed to understand ecosystems or ecosystems response to various disturbances. For example, this is a graph of how uh, ecosystems respond to disturbances and how their response can either keep them vulnerable or can make them resilient or can make them adaptive. So this you can see that this is the normal state at which uh, an ecosystem functions. When a disturbance comes, it starts functioning at the lower than normal state because of the disturbance, and this is the reaction period which it takes to respond to the disturbance which has come. So either it can respond at a very low level, so it will still be vulnerable to that disturbance, it won't come back to the normal level of functioning uh, if the response is low, or the response is still vulnerable. If it responds in a resilient fashion, so it will recover from whatever the disturbance was and come back to normal functioning. So this is called resilient response or resilient response of the ecosystem. Or it can further is increase its response to adaptive response, which means that it has come up to even a higher level of functioning from what it was functioning earlier, so that now even when the disturbance comes, this system will be able to face it in a better way, and its functioning or its sensitivity has the sensitivity has reduced and its functioning won't be impacted as much as it was earlier when the disturbance was introduced. So this is the application of the concept of vulnerability and resilience on an ecosystem. Again, you can understand resilience from these types. So there is not only like this is an example of shock which the ecosystem is facing. This is example of either stress or shock which any kind of system can experience, and from that how the countermeasures to counter the stress or the shock can help the system gain resilience. So stress is basically uh, gradual or a kind of disturbance which starts from a smaller scale and then increases gradually, or it is a gradual continuous gradual disturbance. So it takes uh, place in this form. It's not, the functioning does not go straight down, it reduces slowly. Then you introduce some countermeasures, and because of the countermeasures the functioning comes back up slowly. So this is when the system is resilient when the functioning comes back to the normal level of functioning. This is example of a shock. So shock is something which is very sudden. So the disturbance is not gradual disturbance, it's a sudden disturbance which causes the system to go into a disturbance state uh, and start functioning at a lower level or stop functioning. Then when you introduce some countermeasures, so the system can go back to function at the same pace as it was functioning. So that is then that system becomes resilient. Uh, so this is another example of how resilience can be explained. So I hope this makes it clear what resilience is, what vulnerability is. Now focusing on fragility. So fragility is a term which may be regarded as the inherent property of an ecosystem. Uh, so any ecosystem has a certain kind of fragility, whether or not it is exposed to any kind of disturbances. Here we are talking about disturbances. So we experience vulnerability, resilience, and risk whenever there is some kind of disturbance that is present. When we talk about fragility, fragility is associated with the inherent quality of the ecosystem or some other kind of system, which causes it to be vulnerable or to experience the impacts on a greater level, so impact of any kind of disturbance. So it essentially is the inherent quality of the ecosystem whether or not it is exposed to any disturbances or not. However, the inherent quality is not observable unless uh, a disturbance is observed. So the only observable fragility is one that is displayed as a result of the disturbances. It can be natural as well as human caused or in operating of the ecosystem. So the measurement or the observance, it is only it only can be done in the case of a disturbance. So relating ecosystems to the disturbance that work there can provide useful assessment, but inherently fragility is related to the inherent quality of the ecosystem. So it answers questions like why one kind of ecosystems is can sustain such kind of disturbance while another kind of ecosystem cannot. So one ecosystem which cannot sustain such kind of disturbances, it has certain inherent qualities which is called the fragility of that ecosystems, which causes that ecosystem to not sustain that certain kind of disturbance. That is what fragility is. So I hope fragility is also clear. So we understood resilience, vulnerability, and fragility. Fatalism is basically an understanding that whatever disturbance or negative impact that is happening, and the system cannot protect itself from the impacts, and it will have to bear the impact or any disturbance, and uh, uh, it might not be likely to survive the impacts or go back to normal functioning. That is what fatalism is. So I explained the meaning of all of these. So I hope all of these are clear. Uh, Now let's go back to the question. So the question is asking that the capacity to come back to normal position without much of external intervention after having gone through some catastrophic event or same kind of damage in environmental sustainability is called what? So we saw here that going back to the normal function is always referred to as resilient or resilient functioning. So whatever either stress or shock or any kind of disturbance occurs, the system should go back to normal functioning. When it goes back to normal functioning, the system is referred to as resilient system. So I hope it is clear that whenever we talk about the capacity of any system to come back to normal position or normal functioning, without much external intervention, we are talking about the quality which is called resilience of that particular system. So I hope this is clear. We'll move on to the next question now. So the next question is, in India, what percentage of people need help to fall under the minimum standard of living category? And you have several options. This is basically referring to this table uh, which was present in one of the lectures. This table basically shows each of the country what their annual target of increase of GDP is there, and what is the average GDP per person in that particular country, and what is the percent of the people uh, who are below the preferred minimum standard of living in that particular country. I actually could not find the source of this table or the details, like for example, I do not know what currency or if this is annual or in what terms this is represented. I could not find, but this is what this table means. So using this table you can answer this question. However, if you want to further read or gain an understanding of what minimum living standards are, this is a resource which I have attached. So this is an article uh, prepared by the International Labour Organization, focusing on the concept and measurement of the minimum living standards. So minimum living standards is basically a measurement of how much money or how much economic resources a person needs to fulfill their minimum needs or their basic requirements. So this is what uh, the minimum living standard means. Over uh, over the years, there have been many ways of calculating what the minimum needs of any person are, what amount of things any person needs, and what is the monetary value associated with those needs that a person needs to have a minimum living standard. So, for example, this is a very early primitive way of calculating. So, for food there is a certain amount, for clothing there is a certain amount, same for fuel, household sundries, personal sundries, and for housing there is some associated amount, and adding all of that it comes to a certain value which is the basic amount any person needs to have in order to sustain themselves or in order to reach up to the minimum living standard. Over the years, different countries and different organizations have calculated the minimum living standards based on their country, their context, and based on different aspects or different things that would be needed by a person in that country or in that area. So for example, this is an example of calculations in the France. This is another calculation based on what minimum dietary requirements of different people are. So for males, for females, and for children, the dietary requirements vary, and based on that, the amount of money they'll need uh, for their food will also vary. And according to that, the calculations of minimum living standards also vary. And what kind of food one would have, that also varies based on your context. So food, the kind of a meal varies from country to country, context to context, and what the meal costs also varies from context to context. So again, the minimum living standard will vary accordingly. Amount of clothing you will need will vary accordingly. Amount of fuel you will need either for uh, cooking food or transport or anything, again that will vary. And the minimum living standard requirement according to that will vary. So this is a document which gives you details about various sort of calculations of minimum living standards, how it's calculated. So you can see here in the later times, even the cost of transportation, etc., started to be added, which were not added earlier. So as times changed, things like transportation or education or entertainment, etc., also started getting added to the minimum living standard requirements. So if you want to know further about how minimum living standard is calculated, why it is an important term associated with uh, associated with poverty, or how the use of resources is skewed amongst different populations in the world, you can access this document and read for yourself. So I hope this question is also clear. Just give me a moment. Okay, coming back. So we'll move on to the next question. So, as per the World Research Institute, which is the WRI, projections for 2030, which sector has the highest potential for improvement via low cost emission reductions? So, this question is asking that basically which sector, either the building sector, transport sector, agriculture sector, or waste sector, among which four of the sectors, which sector has the highest potential for carbon emission reduction, and not only any kind of carbon emission reduction, the emission reduction should be low cost. So the amount of costs we are putting towards reduction of the emission, that should be very low, that shouldn't be very high. So this is uh, uh, the graph, or the metric that the study done by the WRI has produced, talking about the projections for 2030. And it says, according to this, you can see here that yellow shows the low cost emission reductions, and blue shows the medium cost, and the dark blue shows the high cost emission reductions. And these are the potential for emission reduction in each sector. So you can see in the building sector, the potential for emission reduction is the highest. So from there you can get the answer. If you want to read further about how WRI has created these projections, how they identify that what is the potential for emission reduction, and based on what kind of cost. You can access this document here. So this is the document produced by WRI, which is Accelerating Building Efficiency. So this document basically focuses on 8 actions for urban leaders, the actions that they can take to reduce carbon emissions in the building sector. So the action 1 is building efficiency codes and standards, then efficiency improvement, then performance information and certifications, how they can act or how they can enable carbon reduction, how financial incentivization can enable carbon reduction, how government leadership influences carbon reduction, then how engaging building owners, managers, and occupants can help in the same, how engaging technical and financial service provider can help in the same, and how working with utilities can help in the same. So there are 8 specific actions which this document underlines, which tells you about how you can increase building efficiency and how you can reduce the emissions coming from the building sector. So if you go to the part 1, which is the sustainable development opportunities for the buildings, because we were talking about the potential for carbon reduction, we need to see the opportunities which are there in the building sector. So if you go to this section, you'll see how buildings can benefit the bottom line in carbon reduction. uh, so you see here, this shows this is the same figure which shows the economic mitigation potential by each sector, and if you want to read in detail, you can come come to this section of this document, and you can read in detail about how climate change mitigation can be done through reduction of carbon production in the building sector. Okay, so coming back, I hope this is clear. We move on to the next question, which is, who said that Earth provides enough to satisfy every man's needs, but not every man's needs. So this is a very famous quote by Mahatma Gandhi. He basically said this about the Earth's environment, and about sustainability, that we have enough resources to satisfy the basic needs or the basic requirements for every human being on Earth. But if we go towards the economic productivity, or gaining as much as possible, as much value, economic value as possible from the natural resources, then the resources will be never enough to satisfy that amount of economic output for every man present on Earth. So this is basically is asking question is basically asking that who, from which person this quote comes from, and that is Mahatma Gandhi. Okay, moving on to the next question. Economic growth involves the combination of different factors to produce goods and services, such as what? So this question is basically talking about this, that economic growth involves a combination of different factors to produce the goods and services. So it's not only production capital uh, or human capital, but it's a combination of production capital, human capital, natural capital, and social capital. So capital is basically something which has a certain value, or a certain uh, uh, value associated to that thing, and it can generate some kind of output by using that value, or by using that value for production of certain goods and services. So it can be in different forms, or different forms of capital are required to produce economic output or for economic growth. So you need production capital, so you need machineries, buildings, infrastructure, etc. Sometimes even uh, 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 something in the form of monetary, something in the monetary form like cash or something in form of currency which can further the production of the goods and services. uh, then you need human capital, so you need people with certain level of education, with the knowledge of production of that particular goods or services, with the skills to produce the goods or services, knowing the technique, and the labor who can put their physical labor into the production of their good into the production of that goods or services. So that is the human capital. Then there is the natural capital. So these consist of the raw materials or the natural resources uh, which you will use to produce that particular goods or services. Then comes the social capital. So even after having all of these, you need uh, social institutions like the government. You need sometimes trade unions for trading after the production of goods, or for distribution of services. You need the community where the services will be distributed or the goods will be distributed. So you need social institutions like that to enable the production of goods and services, and then therefore the distribution and production of economic output from the production of these goods and services. So these are all the different types of capital that is required to produce economic output and to produce economic growth. So I hope this is clear as well. Moving on to the next question. So this is the last question for today. This is basically that which is our biggest source of fresh water on earth as per the World's Water 2008 and 9 report. So this is a report which talks about the different sources of water on earth, and this question predominantly talks about the biggest source of fresh water, and you have four options: freshwater lakes, Antarctica glacier, Greenland glacier, and fresh groundwater. So this is the table from that report which talks about the distribution of world's water. So you can see this is the amount of total water which we have on earth. Of this, only this amount of water is fresh water. So you can see from the total 100%, total 100% of the total fresh water, uh, the largest percentage of the fresh water which we have comes from the Antarctic glaciers. So I hope you can understand that, get the answer to this question from here. Then this shows the largest percentage of fresh water that is stored in the Antarctic glaciers. So I hope that is clear. I couldn't share this report because this is not available in the public domain. You actually have to purchase this report. So this is just taken from the lectures, which gives you this table of the distribution of world's water. I hope this is clear as well. This is the last question for today. Thank you all for attending. If you have any further questions, anything you need to ask, please go ahead.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Please make a one WhatsApp group. Make a WhatsApp group and share all the PPTs and video on
The
things.
all the
Sometimes could not. We are all are working professionals, so much difficult to everything following. So better it will if you can create one WhatsApp group and upload all the PPTs and notes and videos, whatever.
Okay, as I showed you, all of the PPTs and PPTs and videos and everything, they're already available on the Swayam portal. So you're accessing the Swayam portal anyway for the lectures. So you can very easily go there and access the videos and PPTs from there only. So I don't think there is a need of a WhatsApp group. Also, I do not have the contacts of all the people who can be put in the WhatsApp group. There are I think today there are only 10 or 12 people who have joined. So a lot of the people are not joining the live session. So I have to make it available to everyone. So that is the best way that I showed you. I'll show you again.
Actually, we are in on the way office going time, returning time. So many times network is not working, not properly listening your notes and lecturers. So that's why I am requesting to create a WhatsApp group of PPTs and videos.
I understand you, but only thing I'm telling that it is very easy to access everything from the portal itself. You anyway are accessing the portal for your courses. So, for example, this is your week one's course here. So you are anyway accessing all of your courses from here. So this is a portal from where everyone can access. Right now, only limited number of people are joining, and I do not have the contacts of everyone who is joining, so I cannot make such a WhatsApp group as I do not have everyone's contacts. This is the only way which I have for me to share this to you, and which is from the Swayam portal. So you can see here in the portal itself, in the last part, it is here all the session recording and everything. So if you just click here, it will take you to the recording. You just have to click and go on to this section. So there are links to all the YouTube videos and to the folder where everything is shared. You don't need to have uh, to go to an additional platform or anywhere. And anyway, I do not have contacts for everyone, so I essentially cannot make and share it in a WhatsApp group. I hope you understand. Anything else? Anyone else has any questions? Okay. Tanmay is asking, today's PPT will be uploaded today. Yes, it will be uploaded today only. I'll make sure that it is uploaded by tonight. Okay. Anyone else has any questions? I try to upload all the recordings and all the PPTs or any additional material which I am sharing. I try to upload it on the same day so that you do not, there is not much gap after the live session and the material being available. In case of any delay or in case of any emergency, there might be some delay, but I mostly try to upload it on the same day. Anyone has any other questions? Can we get some question bank? I do not have access to any question banks, honestly. If you want, you can uh, talk to, uh, you can post this question in the forum. So if you can see here, this is ask a question. So this will take to a Google group. So this is basically the forum where you can go and ask questions directly to the course instructor. So the course instructor then can provide you any information regarding to the course. So if you want question banks, if you want any additional material, you can directly coordinate with the course instructor from this here. So I hope that is clear. Anything else? Anyone else has any question? So if there are no further questions, okay, then I think we can close the session for today. Should we close it for today, or are there any more questions? Please don't hesitate to ask. You can even ask questions.
Ma'am, your any mail ID or contact number to.
Uh, there is no point in contacting me because I am only a teaching assistant for the live session. If you want to ask any further questions or any other information, the contact IDs of other teaching assistants and the course instructor would be provided in the forum itself. So if you want to ask any questions, I would strongly encourage you that you go to the forum and ask your questions there. Otherwise, I am available every Tuesday here in the live session. If anything that you need to convey to me, if anything you need to ask to me, I am available every week on Tuesday 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. I'm sorry, but that is the only time I can dedicate to these live sessions. So please try to understand that if you need me for any doubt clearing, for any questions, I'm available every Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. You need not hesitate about asking questions from previous sessions or doubts from previous classes. It is totally fine. I totally understand that you might miss some lectures. So don't hesitate. If you have any problems, from the previous session, if you want to ask from previous session, I'm available every Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. You can go ahead and ask me. Apart from that, if you still have doubts, if you still have questions, please go onto the forum and post your doubts and queries there. Any other questions? Okay, I think then we can close the session for today. Thank you very much all for attending, and I'll see you in the next session, which will be next Tuesday 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Thank you all.